All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome. I guess this is the last session of the day. We're starting right before, I guess, the reception or whatever. So let's start with some intros. So Mark Weitzel. I work for Microsoft. I'm the product owner for Redis. I also have Grafana, app configuration, and a few other things. I've been at Microsoft for about 4.5 years now. And had various roles inside of core and AI. I worked early on with the Azure Developer CLI and a few other things to kind of get that off the ground. And now I'm having fun with Redis. So Roy, why don't you say hello?
Yeah, so I'm Roy, I'm from the Netherlands. I used to work for Microsoft about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Now I work for Redis. So when I was at Microsoft, I focused on Azure Managed Redis when we started building that together, helping customers, helping partners within the private preview, the public preview, and now GA. I joined Redis about 2 weeks ago as a solution architect, and my focus for Redis is to help customers adopt Azure Managed Redis, or for short, AMR, if you will. So yeah, that's who I am, and obviously, we love to collaborate together.
Yeah, we do. And we lost our little clicker, so we're going to have to wander back and forth.
That's fine.
So.
That's fine.
Yeah,
we can manage.
right. I can't reach. OK. So let's talk about some of the challenges that we've got when we build AI applications. So quick show of hands, and the light's shining right in my eyes. Quick show of hands. How many folks have built AI applications? And OK. Oh, perfect. Good. All right. So then you know about, like,
Can we put the volume a little bit higher of the mic? Is that possible?
Yep. How's that? Better? Better? Yes? Good? Good? Great. So we know as we build these applications that we have a lot of challenges facing us. We've got memory, which is what we're going to be talking about today. We also have cost. We'll show you some strategies for using Azure Managed Redis to help with cost and token consumption, and then of course integration, how we integrate some of the things that we have, our services, with other services as well. And so really what we're going to look at in this presentation and this demo and whatnot is we're really going to look at 3 areas. We're going to look at using memory management and using short-term and long-term memory. And we're going to use Azure Managed Redis for that. We're going to talk about the agent framework, which has been discussed in a number of sessions today, but really we're going to focus on the memory part of that because that's what we're focusing on in this session. And then lastly, since you have a cache with Redis, at the end we'll walk through how you can start to use that through agentic scenarios through MCP. So those are the things that we're really going to focus on today as we go through that.
So let's just double click on Azure Managed Redis a little bit. So who here knows Redis? A couple of them. So who here thinks that Redis does caching? Who here thinks that Redis is a full-fledged data platform for all your real-time needs? 1 or 2. OK, so we have some work to be done. So this is a 2025 Stack Overflow developer survey. And what you can actually see over here is that Redis is loved by developers as one of the biggest one next to GitHub MCP server when it comes down to data management for AI agents. So if you actually look at where Redis has started, and we take a little jump back in.
So how many are developers in here? Awesome. OK. And then how many actually use Redis in here too? How many will use Redis? OK, come on.
Hopefully everybody at the end.
I know, come on.
We're going to ask that
All
at
right,
the end of the session.
There's a spoiler alert at the end.
Yeah.
All right.
So like back in 2014, right, Redis has set the standard for caching. Fast, performant, in-memory type of caching. And most of the people who use our technology, they use it for caching. And please keep doing that, because it's actually really good at that, right? But as the progressing years are coming along and where we are right now, we did see that there are so many other use cases that Redis can solve, while having still the same mentality of in-memory, fast, performant, persistent. So if we just look at a couple of these use cases, we are thinking about time series data, or rate limiting, or use a session store. But also in the AI space, think about vector search, RAG capabilities, the semantic caching that we're also going to talk about that a little bit more. So while we are really good at caching, and we still are really good at caching. If you look at the Redis Enterprise proposition, we do see that we can handle all these type of use cases, giving you a platform, a unified platform to serve all your different data needs, from simple caching all the way up to your agent and AI needs. But obviously, let's jump to a little bit what Azure Managed Redis can do, because you know everything.
And how many folks have used Azure Managed Redis? Okay, so this is great, because what we did, we've had Redis on Azure for a long time, 10 years or so.
Yep.
And what we did is we basically built a Redis, Azure Managed Redis from kind of reimagine that directly into Azure as a first-party solution in Azure. And so now it's fully integrated, and we really focused on performance, making it incredibly fast and outperforming the existing Azure services that we had there. We also made sure that it was cost effective. So Azure Managed Redis is actually less expensive to own and operate than our current Redis solution that's there. And in fact, it's our strategic direction, and we announced retirement of our existing SKUs just a week or so ago on Azure. And really, one of the reasons we did this is so that we can keep bringing the latest enterprise class capabilities from Redis into AMR as quickly as possible. And
I think one very important piece to this puzzle is as well how we've thought about geo-replication and replication on zich, right? So what we are doing with AMR is when you deploy an AMR instance, this will automatically be spread across availability zones in one region, giving you already that high availability capability, right? But now think about the geo-replication. So we've built in a functionality, which is basically the click of a button, and you can have a replica of your specific instance in another region as well, getting it up to 5 nines. So if you think about enterprise applications and how more mission critical and important they are coming, and how quick they need to be, and how close they need to be to your potentially users, with AMR, within a couple of minutes, you can have an instance like that. And it's fully first-party Microsoft, right? We are building this together, we're supporting this together, but everything within the Microsoft ecosystem counts towards Azure Managed Redis as well, compliancy and stuff like that.
And we're in over 50 regions today and continuing to expand.
Yeah, there are going to be more. If you have regions where we are not available, please let us know. Then we can prioritize that.
I wonder who they're going to talk to. I'm not sure.
It doesn't matter, Redis or Microsoft. So we've explained a little bit what are the challenges. So we talked about the cost element of that. How do we deal with memory? How do we give memory to our agents? What about the orchestration? And what about the integration? But now let's focus a little bit on controlling your cost when you are building AI agents solutions. So this is something we do with semantic caching, which is a capability that comes with Redis Enterprise and is fully integrated with AMR. So basically what we are doing, we're going to use Redis as a vector database. Right? So this is a capability that you can do that. Mainly this is used for RAG, fetching specific content for a user that is talking to an LLM. We have the vectors within that store. We're going to pull that data. We're going to talk to the LLM. The LLM knows the context, it can process it, and then gives that specifically back. If we are doing this, we can enable vector similarity search. And here's where it becomes really interesting, and you move into the semantic caching space. So basically what we can do is, instead of doing specific keyword or specific vector searches, we can now think about similarity. And this is where it becomes interesting. So I have a vector database, I have my context vectorized within that, and now by enabling the semantic caching capability via Redis search, you will get a lot more faster responses, and more importantly, reduces the cost. So let me just jump in a quick small architecture and then the demo to show you how this works. So over here, we have the user, right? Just think about a simple chat type of interface. Now, if we don't enable all of this, every single time a user queries the LLM processes and gives a result back. So if I'm asking, what is the weather today? Processing, give it back. Mark is going to ask, what is the weather today? Processing, and give it back. And every single time that this happens, you will be charged for this, right? It will cost money to get that response back. Now, in the case what we are building specifically here, so you can see this, create an Azure Managed Redis instance, and we basically just only need to enable the Redis search add-on. You can enable all the other ones as well. It doesn't cost you additional money. We're not charging you additionally for that. You can pick and choose whatever and how you want to do that. So with the Redis search module, you basically add support for semantic caching. So now what happens, I'm going to ask, what's the weather today, right? At first, it's going to check within the cache if it actually has a similarity of that specific answer. If it doesn't have that, like, hey, there's nothing close enough, it's going to go back to the LLM, process the request, get the request back, and then stores that. So that when Mark is going to ask that, it's basically going to hit the same cache. Hey, we have the similarity. We're going to give you that response. Now, the way Mark is asking it, or the way I am asking it, we are meaning the same thing. Like, I can say, what is the weather today? Mark can say, is it cloudy or whatever? Like, that is all similarity to each other and needs to give the same response. The cool thing with this specific solution as well is that you can easily change how this specifically functions within the code, adding a couple of parameters. So setting the thresholds a little bit higher or setting the threshold a little bit lower. Now, why is this interesting? If you think about creative type of use cases, where the answer, if it's slightly a little bit off, is not that bad, we want to increase that. We want to have a little bit more cache hits so that we are reducing latency and we're reducing the cost. But now let's say we are building a medical type of application where it's very critical that the answer is really corresponding to the question. Now we want to change that specifically. And this is basically done with just setting a different parameter. So let me just hop over to a quick demo around this. So hold on. You can see this. So basically what we have over here is a box that's just going to go to the plain LLM. So I'm going to type in a question. It's going to hit the LLM. And it's also on this side. This is integrated with the semantic cache in combination with AMR. And it's going to give me a response as well. What you do see at the bottom over here is you basically see, OK, how many tokens did the last prompt cost? How many tokens do I have saved, if I have saved any? What is the latency of this specific request? Did I hit the cache, yes or no? And what about the cost? So let's just try this out. And I hope the demo gods are happy with us. What can you tell me about Azure Dev Summit? So it's generating a response. Give it a little bit of time. Dun, dun, dun. Boom. Should come as well.
Generating the response.
Takes a long time.
Yeah, it's really taking a long time.
There you go. So roughly, it's a little bit of a different answer if you actually read the text. We have here 109 tokens, and here 116, 1,733 versus 18,005. And then the rendering within this specific front-end application took a little bit longer. Now, the funny thing is, if I'm now going to transform this, right? So I'm going to ask, I need, what is Azure Dev Summit? And I'm going to make a typo as well, right? So I'm going to put the 1 over there, and let's see what it does now. So this is now going directly to the LLM, right? And this one actually used the specific cache hit that you can see over here. So now if we actually look at the latency, there's a high difference. But more importantly, the cost over here is 15 something, and here is 9 something. It's behind a specific comma. The token saved 78, right? So if you think about this, it becomes really interesting. I can even make spelling mistakes, and it will understand that I'm actually using for the same answer that it can use to power my request. Now, let me ask another thing, just to see if it doesn't hit the cache every single time that I'm asking it something, and just give this as an answer. So, what is the capital of Portugal? So we have never asked this question before, so it shouldn't be stored in the cache. And now we can see it's a miss on both sides, right? This will increase the cost a little bit, and this will just keep running iterative around that. So that's a very interesting aspect. Now, what we did as well, specifically for showing that, is have a small semantic cache calculator. Because in the end of the day, I do think there are two things very important around this. Latency, I can get faster response from my system because it's stored in memory within a semantic cache, and reducement of cost. I can actually keep my cost way lower. So what we have specified over here, if we select a 60% hit ratio of the cache. Now, you can play around with this, and depending on your use case, we understand this. And we have said we are doing 10,000 of daily queries towards, so requests to the LLM, right, from a user perspective. Let's say on average, we have an input token of 100 and an output token of 900. And then we specify the price as well. So how would this look like from a cost-saving perspective? So if you don't have a cache and you just let it hit the LLM every single time, it's going to cost you 33,000. With a cache, this solution, the AI utilization, the LLM utilization, is going to be 13,000, right? So you save 19,000, but in all fairness, you need to pay for the cache as well. That's not going to be free. So the annual cost will be included in that. So there is a very interesting concept to this where we can reduce the cost, increase the performance for our users, and giving them the same type of experience.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We hop over to you.
Yeah.
Can we switch the screens?
All right. So now let's talk about long-term and short-term memory. So how many folks have saw a version of this slide today, earlier? OK, good. Great. Yeah, this is from our our agent foundry team. And basically, I wanted to level set and say, OK, this is what we're talking about, right? You know, a set of inputs, they get churned on with a set of instructions, call some tools, they give you some output, right? You know, essentially, it's a microservices-like architecture. And, you know, you get the same advantages of microservices that you do when you construct and build an agent this way. Let's go to the next one. And so lots of talk about the agent framework. And what we found when we were using the agent framework is that it really made building agents much, much easier and much, much simpler, especially when it came to memory, because it helps us control and plug in memory a lot easier than something like LangChain and the work that we had to do before. And really because we wanted to make sure that this was open and interoperable, it's in open source, there's a lot of extensibility for community innovation, and we actually partnered with the team to bring in Azure Managed Redis as a memory store. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So here, this is again the sort of ecosystem that we have, and what we're going to focus on if we hop to the next one is we're going to focus on using Azure OpenAI, obviously Redis. We started the integration with Mem0 because we had that as well, and we just chose Python just because.
Yeah, it was easy for us to do, so that was fine.
Yeah, because it was easy. All right, so let's hop to the next one. All right, so one of the things that we talk about with memory is we really break it into short-term memory and long-term memory. And you can think of the short-term memory as, you know, the interaction that we're having right now in this particular chat with the agent. And so, you know, that's sometimes like the play-by-play, but you see this inside of the agent framework in the thread and chat message store. And we'll actually see that inside of Redis as we go through the demo as well. And then there's like the long-term memory, the things that bring context and enrich the interaction that you have with the agent and the agent experience. Those are things like user preferences that we have. And that's a, you know, sort of the classic use case of what we're talking about for memory, and really splitting the two. That long-term memory is brought in by context providers inside of the agent framework. And we've got both of those here. So let's take a look. All right, so you want to take this one? I'll take this. Either way? Okay. All right.
Go.
So you can see that we started building on the existing demo that we had with Redis that we built a while ago, this travel agent one. But we wanted to update that in a couple of interesting and key ways. First off, we wanted to make sure that everything was running inside of Azure. So now that's running in Azure Container Apps. We use Bing search for grounding data. And we have Azure OpenAI as well to provide our models. And then, again, we use the agent framework here, and we plugged in mem0 for our long-term memory, but all of it goes to the exact same Redis instance. And that's actually really interesting because as you start to use Redis, this is an application or a service that you already know, that's in your estate, that you already know how to manage, that you already have policies around. So all of those capability that you've built up with Redis easily translates when you start using it for memory. It's not something new that you have to go off and learn here. And so that's the, sort of the block architecture of the architecture that we're looking at, of the system that we're going to look at now. So let's take a look.
Just to add to that, obviously we have chosen for Azure Container Apps, but if you want to do something with AKS or Azure App Services or whatever, it fully integrates natively within that. And what you do see also with Azure Managed Redis, so because this is a truly first-party service, right? It integrates with all the processes, it integrates with everything Azure, the complete billing towards Microsoft, and obviously also the support that will also fall back together to Redis to get you the experts when you need in that specific sense. So I think that's a really interesting context that you can build these type of aspects with any Azure native service, I would say. Cool, let's hop to the demo. Where is it?
Right there.
Oh, I need to.
Can we switch to the, no?
Oh, it's a different thing or not?
Okay.
Hold on, you fix it.
All right.
You're faster than me.
Yeah.
I need to close this one, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, cool. So who have seen the AI travel demo before? Nobody? Really? Cool, awesome.
That's awesome.
I got like that. So
all right.
basically, AI travel agent support system. So basically what we have done, we have two users, Mark and myself. Right, and we need to plan a trip. So we're going to ask that to this specific, hopefully successful system, and that's going to help us.
There we go.
So let me just first start off with myself. I would like to go to
Lisbon?
Lisbon, why not? Yes. So, hi. I want to book a trip to Lisbon. So, okay, that's interesting. So it basically, the user message send out, I want to book a trip to Lisbon. Context is retrieved, so it actually knows me from a long-term memory. So I love food tours and I love early morning flights, which I will guarantee you I do not like, but for this demo I do like.
It must be hallucinating.
Hallucinating a little bit, right? And then basically it finished that up. So how would this look like for me? So it's going to ask me the travel dates, where I'll be flying from, the accommodation, the activity, besides food tours, are there any other activities? Because it already understands from a long memory perspective that I'm that user and I have interacted with the system before, and I probably have said that I like that specifically, and what is my budget range in mind for flights and accommodation, right? So let me just quickly go over this and say travel dates, 31st October till 2nd November, flying from Amsterdam, and then I like an Airbnb. Feels me like it's cozy, it's fun.
Kind of homey.
So I'm gonna do an Airbnb, and I only like food tours because I like to eat. Apparently, I have a high budget of 1,000. So I'm gonna send that out, and obviously it's gonna go over that. It's gonna tell me, it's gonna make a whole itinerary, and this is specifically based off what I like. As you can see over here, for the flights, I will search for early morning flights from Amsterdam to Lisbon, 4-hour dates, based on the long-term need that this specific agent knows about me, right? So that's quite interesting, I would say. You see it on the side as well. And it's using a couple of other aspects. So here you go. Search for the flights. It's adding food tours in Lisbon, which I can do, all within my specific budget, right? So this is really something, from a memory perspective, that becomes really interesting. But now, if I even were to close off this specific chat and I will boot it up again, now we're talking about short-term memory, right? That has been stored, that has been fitted out. Let's see what it thinks about Mark, and if you ever interacted with the system before.
And so, on that, the grounding data that we showed for Bing, that's where it's pulling in some of that information from. So that's where that grounding data from Bing search comes in.
Yes. Mark, where do you want to go?
I would like to go to, how about Miami?
Miami. Okay. Hi. I want to book a trip to Miami. So because actually, Mark has never used this application before. So there is no memory of Mark. It doesn't make sense. So it's not going to ask how it did with me, specifically around, hey, I know about your food tours. Is there something else I need to consider? Hey, I know about your early morning flights, which I still don't like. But so this basically now runs off like just a normal process. So when do you want to go to Miami, Mark?
I want to go like in February or so, and I'd love to have some Cuban food if I could. That would be fantastic.
Okay, so I'm staying 3 weeks roughly, and I want to have good Cuban food. What type of hotel do you like?
5 stars, baby.
Minimum?
5
Minimum.
stars.
I know you, I know you. Okay, 5-star hotel. Let's go. Go, go.
See, I'm the complicated one. It makes the LLM think a lot more.
Yeah.
All right. We're still thinking.
It's taking a long time though. It shouldn't be this
Sure
long.
is. Might
Did we
be
do the
me.
sacrifice to the demo gods today?
Yeah.
We didn't. Let me refresh. Let's see what that happens. Just gonna.
There we
Oh,
go.
there we go.
Just in
I
time.
was
You
just
gotta be patient.
impatient,
You got to
right?
be patient.
So what is actually interesting? So the context received. Hey, Mark wants to book a trip to Miami. Right? That's relevant information. That's something that with the agent framework, we can either later decide if we want to store this somewhere and actually want to use this in our long-term or short-term or any else. We will double-click on that a little bit later. Now, if you look over here, 5-star hotel, Cuban dining, and it basically helps Mark to book the trip.
Now, it's a little known fact that I'm actually from Miami and actually can verify that that is accurate information because I have eaten at Versailles and I've actually gone to the beach at the Fontainebleau. Quite nice.
There you go.
There we
So
go.
There you go. Cool. Now let me hop over to Redis Insight. This one.
You just refresh it up there.
Oh yeah. I can
Yeah,
do
yeah,
that.
yeah. There we go.
So who here knows Redis Insight? Sorry, one person? Really? One person knows Redis Insight?
Okay.
2 persons? Cool. Redis Insight, free to use, even if you are using Redis open source, for example, which is just a caching, and Redis Enterprise gives you a lot more capabilities. But you can use this with any Redis deployment and instance, which gives you a graphical user interface to interact with your data. It can give you actually also AI capabilities to talk with it, and a couple of other things as well as dashboards, as metrics, and stuff like that. So especially when you are in this space and looking at your data and doing all kinds of things, Redis Insight is a really cool tool. But I also know we have something later that's maybe even more cool, which can be in combination. So now, if I actually look at this specific store, right? So we have a mem0 store. So let's just have a quick look into that. So let's open the top one. So hey, it wants to save that I'm traveling to Amsterdam from October 21st to November the 2nd. Okay, that's interesting. And then let's see another one. Hey, Mark is planning a trip to Miami from February 1st to February 20, right? So we're not only storing this in the short memory for the session state, and let's say Mark's connection gets kicked off and he comes back and it is there, but it's also valuable information for that long-term type of information, right? And let me look over here. I said that I like to stay in an Airbnb. So next time, guess what? It's not even going to ask me what type of accommodation do I want. No, it's going to know, hey, you like to stay in an Airbnb, so hey, here is your Airbnb. So the experience for the user will become a lot better. I also have a quick look at the chat messages. So,
And
yeah.
the difference between these two, the long-term memories here and the short-term session memory, this was decided by the developer inside Agent Framework, right? So we make it really easy for you to determine what should be a long-term memory and stored, and what should be a short-term memory and part of the session as well.
Yep. Anything else you wanted to show here, or?
No, I think we're good. All right.
Cool, awesome. Jump back to presentation.
Yeah.
You need to do
Oh,
that
right,
because
right.
my
Okay.
skills on the MacBook are not that great.
Oh, that's right. He just got a Mac. He used to be on Windows. You know how it goes.
I did Windows since I was 11 years old, so that's a very long time. And now I switched to a Mac, so it's getting used to it. I need to get it into my fingers a little bit. Hey, but that's really cool, right? So in the end of the day, we've talked about how we can leverage Redis enterprise capability in a fully managed service like AMR on Azure. We've talked about how we can utilize short-term and long-term memory. We've talked about how this all potentially could look like on Azure. Now, let's say that you are running this. Cool, awesome. But let's say that something happens. So how would you deal with that?
So there's a lot of really interesting things that we have. And one of the ways that, how many folks heard Amanda talk about the SRE agent today, earlier? How many folks? Yeah, okay. So one of the things that, now that you have, and this light is like right in my face, so it's like I can't see anybody.
You want to stand here?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's really great is that now that we have a Redis cache and it's up and running, there's a couple of things that we want to be able to do. We want to be able to expose that in other agentic scenarios, right? So we want other agents to be able to call that, things like Copilot, for example, or the SRE agent. So one of the things that we have right now is we have the Azure MCP server, and this is where we integrate a lot of the management plane operations of our services, including Azure Managed Redis, into the Azure MCP server. Right now, there are only read-only operations that you can do inside of that. But it's going to give you a way to feed information to other agentic scenarios through MCP, the standard tool calling interface that we have. Let's go to the next slide for a moment. So the other thing that we have is Redis has released an MCP server as well. This is what we call sort of the Redis MCP server versus the Azure MCP server with AMR. A little complicated in naming, but this allows and exposes the data plane operations that you have for your cache. And so what becomes really interesting is, here I have the Azure MCP server that is able to query Redis, get information about my clusters, about my databases. And now I have the Redis MCP server where I can actually get keys and values. So I can start using those things in conjunction. If I have a live site incident, for example, if I want to have or write my own agent that queries and gets information about my environment, I can do that. And it's all protected by RBAC as well. So, right, it's secure and you're not going to leak data out. So let's go to the next one, where we start thinking about these things together.
Together, combining it?
I think there's one more, right.
There you go.
Yeah, so this is sort of the, how do we start using these things together? But let's take a look and go to the demo, which is always the fun stuff, right?
So you can use this for all kinds of different scenarios, right? Like interacting with the SRE agent, for example, or when you're building your own type of agent. Maybe you want to do some data migration or modification. Maybe you want to get some more management type of information. So, Mark, take us through how this would look within the
Can everybody read that okay? Yeah?
Yeah?
All right.
Okay.
So here I'm in VS Code, and I'm just going to do this through the Copilot interface in VS Code, but it's MCP, so wherever you can invoke MCP, you can hit this. I'm going to make the chat window a little bit larger, because that's what we're going to focus on now. And I'm going to say, tell me about the Redis caches in my subscription. All right, now this is going to churn for a little bit, and you can see that Copilot's going off, and it's looking at my Azure subscription. It's learning about the capabilities, and notice that it picked up the Azure MCP server. And so one of the things that it's done is it's determined which tools it's going to be able to call, which is the best tool for the fit, and in this case, it's determined the Azure MCP server. You can also look at a couple of things. I ran this earlier, which is why you get all the auto-approved for this session. I don't know, how many folks have used Copilot and done something like this and done the, yeah, okay. Okay, great. That's one of the best features they ever put in there. Okay, and so now you can start to see that we have, in fact, information about, what did you put in there?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
So I abused your subscription
You
for some
sure
testing.
did.
I'm sorry.
I'm paying for that?
Yes, you are.
All right, so now we have AMR, which is the one that we looked at earlier. You can see the SKU that's in there and the status. And you can also see I'm doing a session tomorrow about platform engineering and AI, and that's the Redis, Azure Managed Redis I'll be using there. And you can see one of the other things that's really nice about this is it gives me some key observations, so it sort of summarizes all the information there, right? So all of these are Azure Managed Redis instances. It's all using system-assigned identities. Now, so it gives me kind of that overview of things. Yeah, okay.
I like that one, that it picks up, that it's actually tagged for deletion on October 15th, right? It's pretty
Very
cool
courteous.
that it picks it up.
Very courteous.
Well,
Okay, so there's other things that I can do now as well. And these things kind of churn. You saw it takes a little while. So I have actually a little history one that I saved here. And let's take a look at this one that I did just a little while ago.
but I do like the fact that it actually runs you through, like these are all the steps I need to take and runs you through that whole process.
Yeah,
It looks
yeah,
really
that
cool.
is nice. All right, so here's the same query that I just did, and you can start to see that it starts to tell you exactly what you get. And so you can look at this along the way. And I found this is actually helpful to kind of learn what things are doing there. And also sometimes to say, I didn't expect it to do that. And you can see we have the information and the cluster that we looked at earlier in Redis Insights. This is the one right here. And so now one of the things that we can do, and let me just flip back to that Redis Insights there for a second. And you can see inside of here, if I go back, let me go to databases, come back in here. All right, you can see that I actually have a number of different caches inside of there, and we'll look at the sample bicycle, but you can see this is the AMR that we have right there. So if we go back, I said, let's get some more information on AMR. So again, notice that it's hitting the MCP server from Azure. So this is a management plane operation that it's doing. And now it's giving me a lot more detail inside of there of the things that are installed, the key features, and it seems to be well configured. And now what I want to do is say, okay, that's great, but what are the caches inside of that? So now I'm going to do a show me all caches, and that will spin for a little bit. But notice that it's now calling the Redis MCP server. Okay, so it's calling a data plane a set of data plane operations now to get the data inside of that. And so you could imagine something's going on with your Redis instance. You're not sure. Get me all the information about it. Oh, let me start probing and seeing what's inside of there. And now Copilot and Redis are actually sitting right next to you as you're interacting with that. So now as I go through there, I can see that it's running a whole bunch of things. And now I start to get the information about the contents of the Redis cache that's in there. So I've got a sample bicycle cache in there. I got some restaurants. I got some session data, leaderboard, and here's the mem0 here. And again, I get a set of key insights that we're looking at, right? Lots of different types. It looks like we're doing some AI memory system with mem0. There's some advanced features enabled with JSON storage, and there's actual real application data inside of there. Okay, great. So now we're able to see what's going on. So I've discovered information about my clusters. I've discovered information about my configuration, about a specific Redis instance, and now I'm looking at the caches inside of that. And then I say, all right, well, let me just show that we can go off and, in fact, interact with that. So now I can do, hey, add some data to that. So I can add 10 new bicycles. It actually goes out, pulls one of the data from there, analyzes the structure of it, and generates 10 new example bicycles here. And then you can see it runs the JSON set through the MCP server and puts it in, and I'm starting to get values back. And so now it added 10 new bicycles, and it lists them off here so I can look at it. And that's all really great. I don't really like that last one that it put in, so I can say, can you just remove that one because I don't like it? And it went off and successfully deleted that. And then if we flip over to Redis Insights and take a look at our little sample bicycles, you can see that the last one should be right what we deleted there. Did I go too far? Anyway, you get the idea. Here we go. So 1130 is the last one because we deleted 131. And so what we're able to do now is interact with Redis and our cache in multiple dimensions, from the management side and the data side through MCP, which means this opens up your Redis instances to anything agentic in your environment, like the SRE agent,
for example.
All right. So one of the things that we will do now is go back. I think we've got some wrap-up slides here. So let me go back to here. Let's see. We were right about there. So let's go to the big finish. All right. Big finish?
Big finish. Let's
All
do
right.
it.
So one of the things we looked at today was talking about how Azure Managed Redis fits into your agentic environments, how it's a part or a foundational part of how you build agentic applications that are massively scalable, that are super fast, and that are cost managed, and how you can use that. We have Azure Managed Redis. We do the latest innovation like we talked about earlier. It's been a great partnership to be able to bring in all of the great work that the Redis team is doing and bring that into a first-party solution in Azure Managed Redis. We have the industry-leading availability and scalability that Roy talked about earlier. We mentioned cost, that it's a lower cost solution than some of our existing offerings on Azure now. And because it runs on Azure, you've got all of the trust inside of Azure and Microsoft. And if we think about the key takeaways today, one of the things that we want to do is say that we have everything to give you everything that you need to go from spec with some of the spec-driven design that you saw today to production to build those highly scalable, resilient, agentic application. And with Redis and Microsoft, we've got everything that we need that agents have been missing. We've got orchestration now with the agent framework. We've got tools with MCP. And we've got memory with Azure Managed Redis. And of course, we love developers, so we're an open ecosystem there as well, but to build enterprise-grade solutions and applications. And here are some additional resources if you're interested. And I think that's our...
I have one more thing to add.
One more thing. Just one.
No, probably
right,
a
let me go
couple
back.
if I start talking.
Here we go. Here we go. Where do you want me to be?
Yeah, keep it on here. That's fine. Look, we talked about a lot, right? We understand Azure Managed Redis is completely revamped. It's not just traditional caching. It's now a full-fledged data platform, fully managed, built together with Microsoft. We talked about the agent framework and how you potentially could think about that. We talked about MEM0, but then maybe also another capability, how to run this on Azure. And we talked about all the integrations and MCP capabilities, and we just basically, that was the tip of the iceberg. So especially when you are evolving into this space, right? And we do see AI is here to stay and it's going to take over the world. I can understand that it can feel like a lot. There are a lot of different aspects you need to learn, especially when you're running it in big enterprises and big organizations and stuff like that. For me personally, what is really cool about this, and while I think you should be building this on top of Azure, is that you can have your applications and just add one of the pillars towards that. You can start off quite easily with transforming your current Azure cache for Redis that is a cache for your specific application into a vector database with semantic caching as well, and just experiment with that. And then when you're ready for the next iteration, for the next phase, you can think about, hey, what can I do from the agentic framework, and how can I implement that within my current application code or maybe greenfield type of applications? And what about this whole integration that we're talking about? Or the other way around, you start with the MCP integration because you saw a couple of really nice things that my colleague Mark showed, and maybe transform it back. So it's modular, if you will. You don't need to be thinking about, hey, what's my new agentic application going to look like? Now I need to do all these different things, right? You can start small and end big. And I think if you actually look at the partnership that Microsoft together with Redis have, and obviously I can talk about, because I was on both sides of that specific
You
code.
got one thing, though. You have
No,
one
no,
thing.
no, no, no. I'm going to finish this one up, and then I will open up the floor for some questions if there are any. But this space goes so rapidly fast. And if you actually look what Redis in combination with Microsoft and our interaction and how we try to evolve each other as well and get the latest capabilities enterprise ready with SLAs, with compliancy and everything, I think it's a great partnership that can really help you to be successful as well. So I think those were two things, I'm sorry, but okay. That's our session for today. So
that was the big finish.
that was it. Yeah,
was the big finish.
we will take any questions if there are any. Don't be shy. So we explained everything so well that there are no questions. I cannot believe that. That's not true.
We didn't even get a round of applause. That was the big finish. There you go. And any questions? Otherwise, we'll hang out here for a few minutes and take any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thanks.